I recently watched the film Interstellar again by Christopher Nolan, which is one of my most favorite films ever, and then I thought, hey, can I make a diorama that is based on that film? Well, why not? Shouldn't be too hard. So here we are, but I did not really build a diorama, but a book nook instead. If you have seen the film, then I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with this scene where the protagonist, Cooper, falls into the black hole and lands inside of that multi-dimensional bookshelf, also called Tesseract, of his daughter, Murph. I always loved the art design of that scene, so I tried to recreate that Tesseract. Fortunately, there are a lot of pictures online of that film set, which was a big help for reference. Here I also found out that most of that scene was indeed a practical set, which made the scene even more impressive. But that's typical for Christopher Nolan, he always tries to avoid as much CGI as possible. To begin with, I took some measurements of my bookshelf, and with that measurements I drew a sketch plan of the whole thing. I figured that the perfect size would be a height of 25 centimeters, 12 centimeters wide and a depth of 20 centimeters, which are about 10 by 5 by 8 inches. After drawing the plan, I started to cut pieces of XPS foam that I used for the outer frame of the book nook. I used my hobby knife and my hot wire cutter for that. The whole cutting process could easily be done with the knife alone, but there is just a satisfying feeling when you cut foam with a hot wire. After every piece was cut, I simply glued most of them together with wood glue. To hold the pieces together, I just used some toothpicks until the glue was dry. For the inside of the book nook, I only needed 2 miniature bookshelves and some mirrors. So I started to build the shelves with 1.5mm thick cardboard by cutting out small pieces and gluing them together with super glue. But I thought that the bookshelves alone just didn't sell the effect that the Tesseract in the film did. If you take a look at these pictures from the scene, you can see that the bookshelf gets stretched in almost every direction, so I had to find a way to recreate that effect. How did I do that? By cutting additional cardboard pieces into this shape and stick them on the bookshelves. At first I was very skeptical about that idea, but it turned out to be not that bad at all, as you will see later in this video. Since these are mini bookshelves, what do they need? Mini books, of course. For that I used some miniature book covers that I found online, link in the description down below if you're interested. Printed them, cut them out with a hobby knife and glued them on a 3mm thick XPS foam. All left to do was cutting the foam, and there I was sitting with a bunch of tiny books. I was pretty much done with building the accessories for the inside, so the next step was painting them. For the bookshelf I mixed some burnt umber with a dark brown to desaturate the color a bit. To give it a more worn out look, I dry brushed it with a very light brown, almost beige tone. For these extensions that I glued on the bookshelves, I just mixed different tones of brown. After the paint job was done, I was pretty happy with the result. Then I turned my attention to the frame. I cut a big circle shape into the front part of the frame. I won't tell you what this hole is for yet, but some of you can probably already guess it. Then I painted the inside with a black primer paint. At this point I haven't glued the left part to the frame yet. This is because it was way easier to assemble the inside parts later on. While the paint was drying, I cut the mirror pieces into shape so they would fit perfectly into the frame. And after the paint was dry, I glued them on the inside with super glue. This part was by far my favorite of the whole build, adding the tiny books to the mini bookshelves. There was just something so calming about it, almost like meditating. Inside of those shelf extensions, I glued strips of parchment paper. The idea was to put glowing LEDs or filaments behind it, and the parchment paper serves to hide the glowing sources, but still lets enough light through. So I took these light filaments, connected some wires with my trusty wire wrapper, and attached them to barbecue sticks, which I cut down to the right length. Then I put the filament assembly inside of the bookshelf extensions behind the parchment paper. I did that 4 times, twice for every bookshelf, and then I was finally ready to glue the shelves into the Book Nook. I also drilled holes, off camera, into the bottom piece and the bottom mirror to guide the wires through. First I was worried that the superglue wouldn't stick well enough on the mirror surface, but I was proven otherwise. After one side was done, I could glue the other part to the frame and secured it again with toothpicks and nails. I attached the second shelf to the part as well. The only piece left was the roof part. To get enough light inside of the Book Nook, I also added 2 additional filaments on that piece. But first I made some holes for the wiring, painted the inside black, and then I assembled the filaments and glued them into place. All that was left to do was to glue the roof piece on the Book Nook. Now it was time to connect all the wires with each other, with a button and the power supply. To get a better overview, I connected most of the positive wires together and did the same with the negative wires. This was no issue because this time I built the circuit in parallel and not in series. I poked a hole into the front part for the push button to turn the lights on and off, and then I connected everything with the power supply that I have attached with a double-sided tape in the bottom piece of the Book Nook. The whole build was pretty much done. To fully finish the Book Nook, I painted the outside of the frame also with a black primer. To hide the wires on the roof piece, I used a 3mm thick piece of balsa wood, which is a very soft wood and perfect for crafting, and painted that in the same brown tone as the miniature bookshelves. To create the illusion of an infinite space inside of the Book Nook, I used an acrylic two-way mirror that I put in the front part of the frame. With this mirror, everything on the inside gets reflected, but you are able to look through it from the outside. To get the mirror out easily if necessary, I also glued 2 balsa wood pieces onto the two-way mirror. For the final touch, I added my special extra, which is a small watch. To be able to change the battery or adjust the time at any time, I didn't glue the watch in place. The hole was tight enough so it wouldn't fall out. That's what she said. And there it is, the Interstellar Tesseract themed Book Nook. Another project done that was super fun to make. If you wanna see more projects like this, leave me a comment down below, give me a thumbs up and even consider to subscribe. Alright, thanks for watching. Have a good one. Cheers.